ABA early. Why we need more ABA-based programs in early education. For many kids with autism, there's pressure to behave as any other kid would. To say please, to roughhouse with their peers, to look at me when I'm talking to you. But in their minds, these social norms are as foreign as a new language. And as a society, it is our responsibility to teach these kids how to function in a world that doesn't click with their brains. Therefore, the federal government should increase funding to support ABA programs in public schools and to help improve special education programs. There is evidence for the efficacy of ABA to increase independence, freedom, and quality of life of these kids, especially for the treatment of maladaptive behaviors early in life. This can be cost efficient for taxpayers. For my first point, let's discuss the what's and how's of ABA. Let's start with what ABA therapy is and how it works. ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis. And one example of this can look like a kid who bites his hand due to stress. This can look like teaching this kid how to ask for a break instead. An article from NCBI called Evidence-Based for Applied Behavior Analysis describes how ABA is not a one-size-fits-all treatment. It's highly individualized, and this makes sense because there's a wide spectrum of behaviors, and some kids are going to need more help, and other kids are going to need less help. This flexibility lends itself well to a broad program. ABA works by analyzing their behaviors to help develop a plan and to teach these kids how to replace maladaptive behaviors. According to an article by Science Insights, ABA looks at the before, during, and after behavior to see what caused it and what the client gains from doing this behavior. From there, a specialist can develop a plan to help teach the child a more productive replacement. To teach a skill, an article on the evidence base for applied behavior analysis explains some common teaching methods include prompting, reinforcement, and functional communication training, or using a tablet to indicate through icons what they need. These are all evidence-based methods of learning. Now that we know what ABA is, let's discuss its effectiveness for individuals and for society. ABA is effective for the improvement of life skills, especially for kids with autism, and this leads to better lifelong outcomes that society should support. Through my experience as a behavior tech, I can help to advocate for the effect of ABA. One of my clients has the goal to reduce tantrums by using a coping skill. And this day, she had earned $1 through the school's money system, and she wanted to spend it that day. But the girl who is responsible for dishing out the prizes when they earn $1 was busy with another kid who was having a crisis. So my kid was having a tantrum too. So we were running around the school, and she was just repeating, "I want it now, I want it now." And eventually we're able to stop. She turned around, apologized, explained why she was upset, which turned out to be actually a little more than I had initially thought. And so she was able to explain that. I was able to help make a plan to overcome this. And as we were about to leave, she was able to take a breath with me. And I was just amazed because maybe a year or two earlier, she would not have been able to do this. She might have thrown in like 50 flavorful curses in the middle of all that. We managed to get away with one. But I was just amazed at her growth thanks to her being in ABA. In addition, a systematic review on EIBI, a subset of ABA, this is a study from Reichow et al., it demonstrates the implementation of therapy has a moderate to large impact on independence, communication, and IQ. And some other significant impacts include development of skills in language, daily living skills, and socialization. These skills are vital to encourage a more independent future, and hopefully one that does not require constant supervision. If someone needs lifelong support, they may need adult supports, and this can look like residential housing. This is something that both the individual and society wants to avoid as it restricts the individual's freedom, and it costs tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. A report on Medicaid spending for adults with intellectual disabilities explains the cost is $51,000 to $70,000 per year per individual. And for some, this is the only option, but whenever possible, we should try to prevent them from needing this treatment. Adapted from an article from NCBI on the cost effectiveness of EIBI, The cost of ABA is 16,000 to 57,000 euros per year, and this translates to roughly $21,000 to $74,000 per year. And while the benefit may seem marginal at first, it does work out to be cheaper in the long run because this is a more temporary treatment versus the lifelong residential housing. And so ABA works, but how will this treatment be implemented and who's responsible for funding? ABA should be implemented through schools at an early age from the federal government. It should allocate funding via the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act to help support programs. To ensure accessibility, ABA should be implemented in special education programs in public schools early. Under the current system, it's more of a one-size-fits-all deal due to a multitude of reasons, but it is unsupportive to the heterogeneity for all disability groups. Have you ever seen a kid in an assembly who's overwhelmed and his poor special education teacher is just trying to tell him to put on his headphones and sit still? Unfortunately, this probably doesn't work for the vast majority of kids. Maybe for one it would, but for another it's the sights, the smells, and this is why ABA should be the gold standard, because since it knows those behaviors, it can kind of pick and choose and help to really base plans around what the kid needs. In addition, according to the Government Accountability Office, a lot of these staff are unfortunately undertrained, and this is another point that we should seek to address. To help improve services, additional funds should be given via the IDEA grants to states, and then they can be distributed to local school districts. This funding should help to pay for psychologists, BCPAs, personal aides, and this policy should be aimed at early identification and intervention, especially in elementary school. This can act as an improvement on the current legislation under the Free and Appropriate Public Education. Due to the nature of ABA, which is so individualized, it can help to better encourage personal development, mainly in autism, but there's also potential for ADHD and aggression, although it hasn't been researched as much. ABA can help to replace simple IEPs and offer a vast opportunity to improve growth. So maybe that kid won't ever look in the eyes of his teacher when they're trying to talk about the themes of Charlotte's Web, but if they can get to a point where they can at least sit through it, I'd say that's a win. We now know that there is evidence for the efficacy of ABA treatment, especially for the maladaptive behaviors, and it can help to teach living skills, especially for autistic kids, and also lower the cost for taxpayers. These kids can grow up and function more independently. The time to increase funding to support the futures of these children who would otherwise be resigned to a future of restriction and supervision is now. Through existing IDEA programs, the federal government can help to invest in the lives of these children and teach them to find their way in a world that doesn't click with their brains. Thank you. And here is my KWO.